Hey everyone. So today I want to talk about why it's a good photographic practice to photograph your neighborhood, where you live, or anywhere that you frequent on a daily basis. A lot of people, what they do when they're interested in photography is they take their camera out only when they travel on vacation, or they do excursions every few weekends, and they go just to places that they know are beautiful, or are just places where you go to photograph. And I want to break you out of this practice. It's fantastic to do those things, and you should do those things, but it's really important to photograph within your everyday life on a daily basis, no matter where it is. The best photographers have a knack for making interesting photographs anywhere. It can be the place that you think is the most boring place in the entire world, and you put, one of those iconic photographers in that area, and they'll be able to create interesting photographs. And that's what I want us to practice. It's interesting because one of the most important ideas behind this is that the more you photograph, the better of a photographer you become. And if you're only photographing occasionally, it's not that much practice. I want you to create kind of like you're going to the gym. Maybe 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, go out on your lunch break, leave for a meeting 15 minutes early and take a couple photographs. This way you come across so many different areas to photograph in, it just within your daily life, different times of day, different lighting. And it really forces you to look at wherever you are in an interesting way. I think that's probably one of the most powerful things you can do. I know a lot of you have like large SLRs, which it's very uncomfortable to do this type of photography with. If you're going to a meeting, why do you want to carry your huge camera with? There are a lot of smaller lenses, pancake lenses that you can consider. Camera companies are now focusing on smaller cameras. Micro Four Thirds cameras are fantastic. I love the Fuji X100. This is what I use for my daily photography. I throw this around my neck wherever I go, pretty much. But if you can't afford those, use a cell phone, use an iPhone, use a Samsung phone, use any type of phone. You don't need the highest image quality to create an interesting image. You can have a very low quality image. If it looks great, it will be great. And part of it is about the practice. It's about the learning experience. You can purchase a camera when you save up for a couple of years, but you can use a phone in the meantime. We're trying to do this practice to make you a better photographer. So I'm going to show you just some photographs from where I live. I'm going to tell you some interesting history about it, and I'm going to show you how I go about it. And I, hope you do the same. I'll just screen sharing. There we go. Okay. So I live in a neighborhood called the East Village of New York. It happens to be a very interesting neighborhood. There's a lot going on. It's not your, I mean, you can create so many interesting photographs here without really trying very hard. But I want to just show you, kind of talk about the history and show you what I do. And just because I live here doesn't mean that you can't take really interesting photographs in completely different places. I mean, I know a lot of you may say I live in suburbia somewhere and there's nothing going on. Well, photograph that, go out and try to create an interesting photograph there. You can do it. A lot of photographers have done it. So the East Village is a fascinating neighborhood. It was, once an area where all of the immigrants came to New York and lived. There's a lot of tenements, a lot of these poor housing, which were packed with people. Then in the 70s and 80s, it kind of became the center for drugs in the city, a lot of heroin, a lot of crack, but also with the really cheap housing, it was the area where all the artists, the writers, the creatives, the people wanting to live alternative lifestyles went to live because of the cheap housing. And so you had this kind of interesting dichotomy of things happening here. And now it's the trendiest neighborhood in the city. So you have a little bit of everything. But I take my camera around on a daily basis. And, when you think of New York, you think of those iconic shots. You think of Empire State Building. You think of the Brooklyn Bridge. You think of all those type of things. And I photograph them too. I photograph those things frequently. But I also photograph daily life. I photograph what I see on a daily basis and what I find interesting. We'll start with this image. This is a bodega on Avenue C in the East Village. And I find this just as interesting as any shot of the Empire State Building. There's so much life. There's so much, going on here. Here's a business that clearly, serves a community. And I think there's just a design here in these everyday products. And I think an image like this is going to grow over time and just be incredibly interesting. And it's got color and it's got form and pattern. And there's a lot going on here, yet it's something that you wouldn't really normally expect to see as a photograph of iconic New York. Here's an image of a bank that I walk by daily. New York is becoming overrun with banks, and they're, kind of, there's nothing really going on with them, especially at night when nobody's in there, and they're really boring. Yeah, there's a beautiful color blue here, but it's stark and boring. And I actually wanted to photograph that. I thought that boringness was interesting. And the thing that really set it off here is, one day I saw this little plant sticking out, this kind of little sign of life within this boring area. And I thought that really added the contrast there, that it was lacking over time. And that disappeared after a few days. So it's, the act of photographing on a daily basis. I walked by this every day and disregarded it until I saw this, and it's one of my favorite images now. Here's another one that I would have missed if I hadn't been looking for photographs every day. This building was being knocked down, like a lot is happening in our neighborhood, and this image was probably only available for a handful of days. I went out, and it's absolutely gorgeous with the patterns, and you can see the life that once lived here. Here's another thing that I walk past frequently, and I photographed, and it's been okay, it's been interesting, but never really used the photograph for anything. The photographs I took of it for anything, they were okay. And then one day I was walking in a snowstorm and in interesting weather, which is something you should do. Photograph your neighborhood when it's raining, or anytime when you would not want to go outside is probably the best time to photograph the area. And things that will not seem very interesting on a daily basis can look amazing in the elements or in different weather or at night. This happened to be a beautiful snowstorm, and then a fire truck was coming through and added all this light and color. And I think it just really made the image pop and really made it very fascinating. Here's another shot of a bodega near my house. Pass this frequently, and the colors here are beautiful. There's a composition here that looks great, but the photograph is really in the look that he's giving right here, staring at this flower. And that's what sets the photograph apart. And it's these images, these everyday life things that you're not necessarily going to come across if you don't photograph on a daily basis. It's, I personally feel I'm able to get images like this because I'm always with a camera, and I'm always, at least when I'm alone, I'm always thinking about what image I can take. It's what I do when I walk, and it's how I enjoy walking. And I have so many more opportunities than a lot of photographers to take interesting images because I'm looking so much more often. Here's another image, taken in the rain, of a old punk rocker. I don't know of his age, but punk rocker. It's not that this shot is not that I went out in the rain, which I often do go out in the rain and I try to photograph, but I just happen to have my camera around my neck on the way home in the rain. And I happen to see this, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Here's an image, which to me screams gentrification. I'll tell you a lot about the East Village. It's gentrifying really fast. It's just happening all over Manhattan, but particularly in our neighborhood. It's turned into kind of the nightlife capital, and it's become a problem here. Real estate values have risen significantly. So it's interesting. You have people in rent-controlled apartments for $250 a month next to people paying $3,000 a month for a studio. It's absolutely incredible, the issues that causes. And this is a building where they kicked out all of the old residents and they renovated it. And this is actually the block I go to get coffee. Go every day, or I make coffee at home. But when I do go get coffee at the coffee shop, I walk down this block. And this is the one day where they happened to, they were painting over the course of a few days, and the white paint happened to cover the statues, and I just thought it's a, perfect representation of what gentrification is, this whitewashing of, an interesting city, and was much more beautiful and colorful when it wasn't that white color. Here's an image of brunch. Just if you want to take an image of trendy New York, take a picture of brunch time at this is a place called Prune in the East Village, which is probably the most popular brunch place. There are long lines out. You wait for an hour on a weekend in the spring. And this is like early spring, I believe, very early spring. And, I love the composition here, the kind of threes. You have the right, you can actually see the person eating and the food. In the middle, you have the trendy person with, the fur coats. And then on the right, you have those, red shoes which pop. And I don't think this photograph would work without without either of the three. If it was just two of the three, it wouldn't really work as well. So here's another image of trendy New York. All of the people waiting online for a sample sale. You see just all these different faces and poses, and it's a really unique subsection of New York. It's a part of New York, and it's growing very fast. Another thing, just on my daily walk. An image of nightlife in the East Village. I don't know, this image kind of speaks for itself. This is the image in a corner near me of the Lower East Side, about 6 blocks away, of what they call Hell Square because of what is occurring there. Apparently, if you live in one of those apartments, it is a nightmare every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday till 5 or 6 a.m. of people screaming, puking, fighting. It looks like New Orleans on the street here. I like to photograph at night. I like to photograph times where people are out and doing things. A small camera helps with that. Here's an image of just this was a very quiet, empty street where I was walking, and the light design happened to be perfect. This is a piece of graffiti that went up, which makes you uncomfortable. I think that's the point. I don't know exactly what the purpose was or why it was put there, except I'm guessing that it was to make people uncomfortable. I love the mysterious image. You can create mysterious images really well anywhere. You can create them wherever you are, but you have to, have elements of design and light, and it has to look pretty. It helps if it looks pretty at the same time. So this is where time of day and light really come into account. Another image, the bikes happen to be there to make the scene work really well, where color and design and everything kind of came together to be this beautiful, like, urban landscape image. This is a picture of my favorite window, the dream window. Unfortunately, this resident is not there anymore. But this is an image I used to walk by and just kind of fondly look at it every day for years. And it's an image that's I'll remember and keep in my East Village group for a long time. I do a lot of photographs of people candidly within the neighborhood. It's a little bit easier in the East Village because there are a lot of people. Not everywhere. Some places there are not a lot of people, and it's a little bit harder. But if you're in a suburban area or an area with not a lot of people, and you can't really do this type of photography with your neighbors, or it's more difficult. Some of you might not. You don't want to be that creep with the camera who's taking pictures of everybody. So I know it's not the most ideal thing for everyone, and we'll talk about ways near the end of this talk to get around that. Here's just a laundromat with this really beautiful window display. Love this image. Here's an image, on a train station, in a subway station, of a woman in beautiful polka dots and pink shoes, and this is just heading probably to a job, I think. Here's an image that I spent time to actually create. There was this beautiful background that I loved. It's now turning into high-rise condos. And I waited for a while to try to capture a cab in the right spot. I took about 50 photographs where a cab was in the scene to get this one. And this one was more so than the others. A lot of the others were just come upon. This one I really planned out and tried to get. So you can do both, especially if it's an area where you're at a lot. It becomes much easier to do this type of photography when that happens. Same thing with this. This has been a stalled project for 3 or 4 years. And then one day, this truck came by with the with the image of the buildings, which I thought added really well. And I waited for the cabs to come in the right way. And if you notice the last two cabs, 1/3 or more of cabs have ads for strip clubs on them, which is pretty funny. And you can use them to your advantage if you come to New York. Often you don't even notice that you're doing it until after you take an image of something and you want to include a cab, and you include a cab, and it's a beautiful image. And you come home and you're like, damn, there's this strip club thing in the image. Suddenly that was not an image where a strip club would work. These two, I think it does work, but in many cases it's actually ruined a couple of my images, and now I notice it all the time because of that. This is an image, I'll tell you an interesting story. When the East Village was the one of the main areas to get drugs in the city, it was dangerous, and a lot of the building owners burnt down their buildings for the insurance money rather than keep them up, because it was just worth much more to them for the insurance money. And so you had overnight these buildings just being burned and going down, and drug dealers selling drugs, in the empty and abandoned buildings and within the rubble. But you had all these artistic communities at the same time, these really creative, energetic young people all together with not much money. And so what they did was there's about, I'm just taking a guess, probably 30 plus 40 little gardens throughout the East Village that are in the remains of these buildings. And the people, they took the rubble of the buildings out, brick by block by block, brick by brick, and they turned them into these gardens. And you go in and they're incredible. Some are more landscape than others. Some are just have, some have Coke cans and soda cans as decorations. It's absolutely incredible and really inspiring of what you can create. And this is one of my favorite ones. This is maybe my favorite one. I thought it was the most interesting. You also, if you're in an area where you don't feel comfortable photographing your neighbors candidly, it helps to go out during festivals or times where everyone is out, and it then becomes, it's better. You have a right to have a camera there, people think. So that's much easier to create photographs, and especially create photographs with a lot of people and a lot of energy going on. This is during the Loisada Festival in the East Village. Same with this one. I consider this kind of like a landscape of faces and an image I couldn't create otherwise unless I had went to this, festival to photograph. Here's an image. It's, walking around with a camera, people actually stop me and ask to take their photographs, and people you wouldn't normally think that you could start conversations with, you have these amazing conversations with. These two are one of them. And, I would have never thought that they would have, wanted to talk to me or like to get their photograph, and the camera opened up a conversation, and they this is one that they posed for. Here's another image of the diversity. This is a store that I walk past every day, and there's almost nobody in it, or one person, and it happened to be a really cold day, so I think everyone was trying to keep warm. And so just the act of keeping your camera on you and not really giving up on an area is important. It's that practice which is going to make you a better photographer and make you get better photographs. So now we're going to talk about a little bit of, taking portraits within the community is a little bit easier. If you don't feel comfortable photographing people candidly, and even if you do, you should do this as well. But if you don't feel comfortable, it can help to do portraits. Ask people for portraits. Tell them you're doing a photographic project on your neighborhood and you need to take portraits, and you'll be surprised how many people will say yes. This one's a candid shot, slightly candid. I walk by all the time, and I was kind of noticing with the cigarette out of his mouth on the side. And so I kind of set up the shot and waited for him to go into the booth and look right up. So it was a candid shot, but it was kind of, blurred the lines just right as he noticed me. This is an image where I just kind of tipped my camera and, kind of gave the universal, can I take a photograph? And he of course let me. Same with this guy. These are more where had a conversation with the person. He actually, posed for about 5 minutes for me, and we had these great conversations, and I walk by daily and see him. And these are, I do, I've done this for the last 3 years, an interview project within the East Village, where I go and I talk to people, and I record the conversation and transcribe it into an interview. And I photograph people within the neighborhood and within their homes. And it's turned into this incredible project, especially if you run a photography business. within your community, this is a great way to get yourself known and a great way to do a really important project or a very interesting project. And a couple things. I love to photograph people in their homes. I love to photograph them in their environment. Some people will not go for it. Some people will be like, my house is too messy. And I always say, I love messy houses. So I say, come on, that's what I want. I want to see the apartment, and I want to see, I want to see you in your element. And, people love photographs of them in their environment, especially if they leave the environment, or they'll really cherish it. This background kind of screamed for itself. Every 99 out of 100 photographers would have taken this same image with the same background. Here's an image where the lighting really works. This is kind of bar lighting. I like to use natural light whenever possible. I really try to position the people in certain ways so that the lighting works really well. And I like to get close like this. I always do that. I like to show the background in a lot of images, but if you get really close, it can really improve a portrait. I also like to do the interview first, because you want people to be comfortable with you, and they'll give you these expressions. This is a comfortable expression here. And it's really easy to get uncomfortable expressions in portraits. I'm sure if you're a photographer, you know that. Interviewing someone and having a half an hour conversation with them really opens them up, and they'll be much more comfortable afterwards to take the picture. What I also do is I'll keep my camera on and ready to go. So if they have a specific pose that they give, I will just say, stop, don't move, just stay like this, like that, and I'll take the photograph. And that's a fantastic way to do it as well. People that you wouldn't think would stop to do an interview in a portrait, they often do. The people that you expect to not say yes are the ones that most likely say yes. It's pretty interesting. Here's an image that I love. This is the oldest tattoo parlor in the city. This guy named Mike Bataki, gave a fantastic interview. But this is an image that really, it's beautiful colors and all that stuff. But this is what type of image you can create when you photograph them in the midst of when you're having a conversation, because you can see he's thinking back. You can see what he's thinking in his face. And it's tough to take an image like that if you don't take it within the interview. Same thing with this. You can really see thought in his eye. I love, when I try to take a portrait, it's not often possible, but whenever you can, it's great to take a photograph like this where you can just see that thought in their eye. This was taken with just in his apartment with a bare bulb, and I moved it a little bit out to kind of highlight his face in this way. And you can create some incredible images with just window light or bare bulbs or lamps if you kind of move things around in the right way or put them in the right place. And this is the final image that I'm going to show. This one uses a little flash. This one, really beautiful background. The Pyramid Club is a very old and interesting club. And this young woman who worked there, who had some really interesting stories about working there and living in the city. But this one, I added a tiny bit of fill flash just to light her up. I don't use fill flash often. I try really hard to stay away from it. But in a situation like this, it was necessary because of all the lights around, but nothing was on her. So a little bit was on her. So I added a little fill flash so it just looked natural. It doesn't look like that harsh flash look that you get. So I kind of dialed I put it on the manual setting. I dialed it down to create this portrait. So let me turn off the screen sharing. So yeah, I hope you learned a lot. I really just think that even with an iPhone, please just go for it. Try 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes every other day. Add it within your daily life. Take shots in where you work, in your office, during your lunch break, walking your dog, going to get groceries. Take a lot of shots that you don't think are going to be good. Just take to photograph. And this is going to help you improve so much. It's really pretty incredible. So thanks. See you next time.